The impact sent shockwaves through Kai's entire body as his exploration pod slammed into the crimson sand of Zarian. Warning lights flashed across his visor while alarms blared in his helmet. His two hands gripped the controls desperately as the craft skidded across the desert floor, finally coming to rest against a towering dune. Emergency systems engaged, his suit's AI announced in a calm voice that contrasted sharply with his. Racing heartbeat. Hull breach detected. Life support stable. Kai flexed his two legs, checking for injuries. Everything seemed intact, though his muscular frame ached from the violent landing. Through the cracked viewport, he could see the alien landscape stretching endlessly rust-colored sand beneath twin suns, with strange crystalline formations jutting from the ground like frozen lightning. What he hadn't expected to see were the figures approaching his crash site. They moved with predatory grace across the sand, their forms becoming clearer as they drew near. Tall, elegant, and unmistakably alien, yet undeniably feminine in their bearing. Their skin held an ethereal green luminescence that seemed to shimmer in the harsh desert light, and they wore form-fitting armor that spoke of both function and fierce beauty. The leader stepped forward, her presence commanding immediate attention. She was striking in a way that made Kai's breath catch tall and statuesque, with intricate markings along her arms and face that seemed to pulse with inner light. Her armor was more elaborate than the others, marking her status, and her eyes held an intelligence that was both calculating and curious. "Stand back," she commanded her warriors in their musical language, her voice carrying natural authority. "Let me examine this ... creature." Kai's suit translator worked silently, feeding him every word through his neural interface. He kept perfectly still, allowing his visor's reflective surface to hide his expression as she approached. "Fascinating," she murmured, circling his prone form with the careful attention of a scientist studying a specimen. "It appears to be some form of sentient being. Look at the structure of its limbs, 2 arms, 2 legs, proportioned much like our ancient sculptures." Her warriors gathered closer, their own weapons lowered but ready. One of them, shorter but no less intimidating, gestured toward his torso. Commander Thesa observed the muscle definition beneath that strange covering. "This creature is built for physical exertion." Thesa, so that was her name. Kai filed the information away while maintaining his facade of unconsciousness. "Indeed, Raven," Thesa replied, her tone growing more intrigued. "These beings from the outer systems, they're not as soft as our scouts reported. This one has the build of a warrior, despite that pale skin." She knelt beside him now, close enough that he could see the intricate details of her face through his visor. Her features were sharp yet elegant, with high cheekbones and eyes that held flecks of gold within their emerald depths. "What strange gods shaped you, little beast?" she whispered, her voice carrying a note of something that might have been admiration. "You're built like the war statues in our ancient temples, all carved muscle and determined lines. Yet you fell from the sky in this metal shell like some divine messenger." Her fingers hovered just above his chest plate, not quite touching, but close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. "Commander," another warrior interjected, "should we not secure the creature before it awakens?" "Patience, Kira," Thesa replied without looking away from Kai. "It breathes still, but slowly. We have time to study it properly. When did we last encounter one of the Star Wanderers? And one so aesthetically crafted?" The comment made something twist. In Kai's stomach part amusement, part something else entirely. He'd been called many things in his years as an explorer, but never aesthetically crafted by an alien warrior goddess. "Perhaps we should remove its coverings to better assess any injuries," Raven suggested. "No," Thesa said quickly, surprising everyone, including herself, with the speed of her response. We know nothing of their customs or anatomy. Best to wait until it awakens. But her eyes continued their examination, and Kai caught the slight flush that darkened her green skin. Besides, she added, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper, there will be time enough for thorough examination later. The Valdris outpost was a marvel of alien architecture, crystalline spires that seemed to grow from the desert floor, their surfaces refracting the twin suns' light into dancing rainbows. Kai found himself bound to an elegantly carved chair in what appeared to be a command chamber, though the restraints were more ceremonial than threatening. Thesa paced before him, her movements fluid and predatory. She'd removed her outer armor, revealing a form-fitting undergarment that left little to his imagination. The intricate markings on her skin seemed to pulse with a soft bioluminescence, creating patterns that were both mesmerizing and beautiful. The creature shows signs of higher intelligence, she announced to the assembled warriors. Notice how its eyes track movement, how it responds to stimuli. This is no mere beast. Raven stepped closer, her own armor now reduced to minimal coverage. In the outpost's controlled environment, its breathing patterns changed when you approached, Commander. Perhaps it finds you interesting. Interesting? Thesa laughed, a sound like silver bells. Look at it, sisters, this pale, soft-skinned thing from the void. Yet She approached him slowly, deliberately. There's something about the way it's built. Those shoulders, broad and strong. The chest beneath that strange covering. I'd wager it's more impressive than our own males. Kai struggled to keep his expression neutral as she circled him again, her fingers trailing dangerously close to his suit's fastenings. I wonder, she mused, what lies beneath this artificial skin? Are all star wanderers built with such promise? Kira, the third warrior, joined the examination. The musculature of the legs appears quite developed, Commander. This one is built for endurance as well as strength. Endurance, Thesa repeated, her voice taking on a husky quality that made Kai's pulse quicken. Yes, I can see that. The way the fabric stretches across those thighs. It speaks of power held in careful control. She knelt before him now, her face level with his. Even through his visor, he could see the golden flecks in her emerald eyes, could smell the exotic spice of her scent. What secrets do you hide, beautiful stranger? She whispered, her voice meant only for him, though, of course, her warriors could hear every word. What would it be like to see you unleashed, to feel that strength directed toward pleasure rather than survival? The frank admission made several of the warriors shift uncomfortably, but Thesa seemed lost in her examination. Commander, Raven interjected carefully, perhaps we should focus on determining its intentions rather than its physical attributes. Its intentions? Thesa stood abruptly, a flush darkening her cheeks. Yes, of course, the creature's mission. She cleared her throat, attempting to regain her composure. What brings you to our world, Star Wanderer? What purpose drives one so magnificently crafted to crash upon our doorstep? Kai remained silent, fighting every instinct that screamed at him to respond. The compliments were flattering, certainly, but there was something deeper in her voice, a genuine curiosity mixed with desire that both thrilled and unnerved him. Perhaps it cannot understand our words, Kira suggested. Then we must find other ways to communicate, Thesa replied, her tone shifting to something more dangerous. Remove its helmet. Let us see the face that goes with such a form. Kai's heart raced. The helmet was his last barrier, his protection against discovery. But as Thesa's fingers found the release mechanisms, he realized the moment of truth was approaching, whether he was ready or not. Wait, Raven said suddenly. Look at. It's breathing. The rhythm has changed again. I think it understands more than we realize. Thesa's hands stilled on his helmet. She leaned closer, studying his face through the visor with new intensity. Is that true, beautiful stranger? Do you comprehend our words? Her voice dropped too. A whisper. Have you been listening to my ... observations? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Kai could feel the weight of decision pressing down on him. Continue the charade or reveal the truth? If you understand me, she continued, her lips nearly touching his visor, then you know I find you ... intriguing. Perhaps it's time we spoke. As equals rather than captor and captive. Her fingers traced the edge of his helmet, and Kai realized that his next choice would determine everything that followed. The tension in the chamber was electric as Thesa's fingers hovered over Kai's helmet release. Her emerald eyes searched his visor for any sign of comprehension, any hint that her suspicions were correct. Kai made his decision. I've been enjoying the compliments, he said, his voice clear and perfectly accented in their language. Though I have to say, being called magnificently crafted is a new one for me. The effect was instantaneous. Thesa jerked backward as if struck, her eyes wide with shock. The other warriors reached for their weapons, but their leader held up a hand to stop them. You ... You understood everything, she breathed, her skin flushing a deeper shade of green. Every word I said ... Every word, Kai confirmed, releasing. His helmet seals with a soft hiss. As it lifted away, he revealed a face that was undeniably human, yet striking strong jawline. Dark hair tousled from the crash, and eyes that held both intelligence and amusement. The universal translator, in my suit, is quite sophisticated, silent but effective. You deceived us, Thesa said, but there was more embarrassment than anger in her voice. I listened, he corrected, stretching his neck after the helmet's confinement. There's a difference. In my line of work, it pays to learn as much as possible before revealing yourself. Though I have to admit, your observations were far more flattering than most interrogations I've endured. The admission made her flush deepen, and she turned away from him, her warrior's questioning looks making her discomfort obvious. You made me feel foolish, she said quietly. No, Kai said, his voice gentle. You made me feel ... appreciated. When was the last time someone called me a work of art? When has anyone looked at me the way you did, and spoken of desire rather than duty? She turned back to face him, surprise replacing embarrassment. You ... you weren't offended? Offended? He laughed, the sound warm and genuine. Thesa, I've been called everything from meat to useful tool by various species across the galaxy. Having a beautiful alien warrior describe me as magnificently crafted, that's going in my personal journal as a highlight. Beautiful? She repeated, focusing on that single word. Breathtakingly so, he admitted, meeting her gaze directly. Your confidence, your strength, the way you command respect from your warriors, and yes, the way you look at me like I'm something worth having rather than something to be tolerated. Raven cleared her throat. Commander, perhaps we should continue this conversation privately? Thesa nodded, not taking her eyes off Kai. Release his bonds, she ordered. If he intended harm, he would have acted already. As the restraints fell away, Kai stood slowly, his full height impressive. Even among the tall alien women, Thesa found herself having to look up slightly to meet his eyes, and something about his presence, now that she could see his face, now that she could hear the warmth in his voice, made her pulse quicken in ways that had nothing to do with combat adrenaline. Why didn't you reveal yourself sooner? She asked as her warriors filed out, leaving them alone. Honestly? Because I was curious about you too, he said, stepping closer. The way you move, the way you think, the way you speak of desire so openly. My people are ... more reserved in such matters. And now? Now that the deception is ended? He moved. Closer still, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes, could feel the warmth radiating from his skin. Now I'd like to know if those observations of yours were purely academic, or if Commander Thissa might be interested in a more hands-on evaluation. The boldness of his words, delivered with such quiet confidence, made something ignite in her chest. She'd spent years commanding warriors, making life-and-death decisions, conquering enemies. But this human, this beautiful, intriguing star wanderer was making her feel like a young warrior again, uncertain and excited and alive with possibility. "You're presumptuous," she said, but her voice lacked any real reproach. "I'm honest," he countered, reaching out to trace one of the bioluminescent patterns on her arm. Her skin was warm and impossibly soft, and the marking pulsed brighter under his touch. "I'm also stranded on your world, possibly for quite some time. We could spend that time as adversaries, or, she prompted, though her breathing had quickened at his touch. "Or we could explore this attraction between us. See where it leads." His fingers moved to her face, tracing the elegant line of her cheekbone. "I find myself very curious about Valdris customs regarding intimate relations." The direct question made her laugh, a sound filled with both nervousness and anticipation. "You really are presumptuous," she said, but she didn't pull away from his touch. Instead, she leaned into it, her eyes closing briefly at the gentle contact. "Is that a yes?" he asked softly. "It's a perhaps," she replied, opening her eyes to meet his. "But if we're to explore such things, Star Wanderer, you should know Valdris women are not passive in their affections." "I was hoping you'd say that," he murmured, and leaned down to kiss her. 3 days had passed since their first kiss, and the dynamic between Kai and Thissa had shifted into something electric and intense. They worked side by side now, sharing information about their respective missions, while the attraction between them grew stronger with each passing hour. "The raiders have been hitting supply convoys along the northern trade routes," Thissa explained, her fingers tracing patterns across a holographic map. "They're not native to Zerion. Their technology is too advanced, their tactics too organized." Kai studied the data, noting the patterns. "Pirates from the outer rim, most likely. My ship's logs contained warnings about increased raider activity in this sector. That's part of why I was exploring alternative routes when I crashed." "Then our interests align," she said, turning to face him. In the privacy of her quarters, she'd abandoned the formal armor for simpler clothing that highlighted her natural grace. "Your people need safe passage. Mine need the raids to stop." "Partnership," he agreed, but his eyes lingered on the way the soft fabric draped across her curves. "Though I have to admit, the benefits of this alliance extend beyond the purely tactical." She stepped closer, her hand finding his chest. The simple touch sent warmth spreading through both of them. The Valdris have a saying, "Trust is built in quiet moments, not in the heat of battle." "And what does this quiet moment tell you about trust?" he asked, covering her hand with his. "That you're unlike any male I've encountered," she admitted. "Your people's customs are different. You touch with such gentleness, yet I can feel the strength beneath. It's intoxicating." He lifted her, hand to his lips, pressing a soft kiss to her palm. "Your strength calls to mind, Thissa. The way you command, the way you think, the way you look at me like I'm something precious. It makes me want to be worthy of that regard." The admission hung between them, heavy with meaning. She moved closer, her body almost touching his, her face tilted up to meet his gaze. "Show me," she whispered. "Show me how humans express desire." The invitation was all he needed. His arms encircled her waist, pulling her against him as his lips found hers. This kiss was different from their first, deeper, more urgent, full of days of building tension, finally finding release. Her hands tangled in his hair, as she pressed closer, her body fitting against his with perfect synchronization. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing heavily. "Your quarters or mine?" she asked, her voice husky with want. "Yours," he replied. "I want to see you in your own space, surrounded by the things that make you who you are." She led him to her private chamber, a space that reflected both her warrior nature and her more feminine side. Weapons and trophies lined one wall, while flowing fabrics and soft lighting created an atmosphere of intimate comfort. "I've wondered," she said, turning to face him, "what you look like without that artificial covering. Will you show me?" In answer, he began to remove his suit, the advanced fabric peeling away to reveal the muscular frame she'd speculated about for days. Her eyes widened with appreciation as each new expanse of skin was revealed. "Even better than I imagined," she breathed, her hands reaching out to trace the contours of his chest. "Your people truly are magnificently crafted." "My turn," he said softly, his fingers finding the fastenings of her garment. "I want to see all of you, not just the warrior, but the woman beneath." As her clothing fell away, revealing skin that seemed to glow with inner light, Kai understood that this was more than physical attraction. The trust she was showing him, the vulnerability she was allowing, it spoke to something deeper than mere desire. "You're incredible," he whispered, his hands mapping the luminescent patterns that decorated her skin. Where he touched, the markings pulsed brighter, creating a display of living art across her body. "They respond to emotion," she explained breathlessly. "The stronger the feeling, the brighter they glow." "Then you must be feeling quite strongly right now," he observed, watching the patterns dance beneath his caresses. "More than I've ever felt before," she admitted, pulling him down to the soft sleeping furs that covered her bed. What followed was a slow, careful exploration of differences and similarities. His human responses fascinated her the way his skin flushed with arousal, the sounds he made when she touched him in particularly sensitive places. Her alien nature enchanted him, the way her markings created a light show of passion, the musical quality of her voice when she cried out his name. They moved together with increasing urgency, their bodies finding a rhythm that transcended species differences. When release finally claimed them both, it was with an intensity that left them shaking in each other's arms. Later, as they lay entwined beneath the desert stars visible through her chamber's crystal ceiling, Thesa traced lazy patterns on his chest. "This changes things?" she said quietly. "Everything," he agreed, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "I wasn't looking for this when I crashed here." "Nor was I when I found you," she admitted. "But now, ... Now we have to figure out what comes next," he finished. "When my people come looking for me, when your mission against the raiders concludes, what happens to us?" She lifted her head to look at him, her eyes serious. "I don't know. But I know. I'm not ready to let you go." "Good," he said, pulling her closer. "Because I'm not ready to leave." But even as they made promises in the darkness, both knew that forces beyond their control were already moving. The raiders were growing bolder, and soon they would have to choose between love and duty or find a way to fight for both. The attack came at dawn, as attacks often do, when the defenders were least prepared, and the twin suns cast long shadows across the desert. Kai woke to the sound of alarms echoing through the crystalline outpost, Thesa already rolling out of bed to grab her weapons. "Raiders," she said grimly, checking her weapons charge. "A full assault force, from the looks of it." Through the chamber's crystal walls, they could see the approaching ships, sleek, predatory vessels that moved with the coordination of a wolf pack. Kai counted at least 15 craft, far more than they'd encountered in previous skirmishes. "They're not just raiding," he realized, grabbing his own gear. "This is an extermination run. They want your outpost completely destroyed. Then they'll have a fight, Thesa replied, her warrior's instincts taking over. But then she paused, looking at him with eyes that held both love and pain. You could leave, Kai. Take one of our fastest ships and escape before they establish a perimeter. No one would blame you. This isn't your fight. He finished sealing his suit and turned to face her, his expression resolute. Like hell it isn't. These are the same pirates that have been disrupting trade routes, threatening both our peoples. And more than that, ... He cupped her face in his hands. You're my fight now. Whatever happens to you happens to me. The declaration made her bioluminescent. Markings flare with emotion. I love you, she said simply. I should have said it before. I love you too, he replied, kissing her fiercely. Now let's go save your people and show these raiders what happens when they threaten our future. The battle was intense and chaotic. The raiders had superior numbers, but they hadn't counted on the tactical advantage of Kai's knowledge of the air. Technology combined with Thesa's understanding of the terrain. Together, they coordinated the outpost's defenses with devastating efficiency. Vector 77 Mark IV, Kai called into his comm, directing defensive fire toward a flanking maneuver he'd seen pirates use before. They'll try to overwhelm the Eastern Crystal Array. Raven, Kira reinforce Sector 7, Thessa commanded, her voice carrying calm authority even in the midst of chaos. Show them why the Valders are feared across the sector. The battle raged for hours, with neither side able to gain a decisive advantage. But gradually, the superior coordination of the defenders began to tell. Working together, Kai and Thesa were like a perfectly synchronized weapon, his tactical knowledge complementing her strategic brilliance, his human adaptability meshing seamlessly with her alien intuition. The command ship, Kai said as they regrouped behind a crystal barrier. If we can take out their leader, the rest will scatter. Pirates don't fight without profit motive. Agreed, but how do we reach it? It's maintaining position above the engagement zone. Kai smiled grimly. Leave that to me. I've got an idea, but it's going to require trust. I trust you with my life, she said without hesitation. Using a combination of Valdris anti-grav technology and human ingenuity, they managed to board the Raider command ship in a desperate assault that should have been impossible. Fighting side by side through the ship's corridors, they were magnificent Thessa's elegant brutality paired with Kai's resourceful determination, creating a partnership that the Raiders simply couldn't counter. The Raider captain was a scarred veteran of a dozen species conflicts, but even he couldn't stand against their combined assault. As his ship's systems failed around him, he spat at them with pure hatred. You think this changes anything, human? There are always more Raiders, more conflicts. Your soft people will never be safe in our space. Maybe not, Kai admitted, his weapon trained on the defeated pirate. But they'll be safer. And that's enough for now. With the command ship captured and its systems broadcasting a surrender order, the remaining raiders fled into the deep desert. The outpost was saved, the trade routes secured at least for now. Later, as the twin suns set over the crystalline spires, Kai and Thessa stood together on an observation platform, watching the victory celebrations below. My people will be coming for me soon, Kai said quietly. The distress beacon from my crash will eventually bring a rescue ship. I know, she replied, leaning against his side. And I have duties here, responsibilities to my clan and my people. So what do we do? She turned in his arms, her markings glowing softly in the fading light. We find a way. Love like this doesn't come along often for humans or Valdris. We'd be fools to let duty destroy what we've built. What are you suggesting? A new kind of partnership, she said with a smile that held both mischief and determination. The trade routes need protecting. The outer worlds need exploring. What if there were a team that could do both? A human explorer and a Valdris warrior, working together to keep the peace? The idea was audacious, unprecedented, and absolutely perfect. Partners in every sense of the word? He asked, pulling her closer. In every sense, she confirmed, rising up to kiss him as the desert stars emerged overhead. Then we'd better start planning our next mission, he murmured against her lips. Already have, she replied, her eyes sparkling with the same light as her markings. There's a disputed system 3 sectors spinward that could use our particular talents. Our talents, he repeated, liking the sound of it. I love the way that sounds. Good, she said, pulling him toward her private chambers. Because we have the rest of the night to practice our coordination. As they disappeared into the crystalline depths of the outpost, both knew they'd found something rarer than any treasure in the galaxy. A love strong enough to bridge the void between worlds and a partnership that would carry them through whatever adventures awaited among the stars.